This episode is sponsored by Weirdo Apparel. Oh hey, I'm Kaycee Rice, and welcome back to another episode of Just Being We, the podcast that's not really a podcast, but we're just gonna sit down and have a conversation. So grab some water, grab some tea, grab some whatever, sit down, get in your comfortable clothes, and let's get started. Today is the second to last episode of my podcast, and it's crazy that it's already been 7 weeks since I've been releasing these videos, and the response that I've been receiving has been so incredible, and I'm grateful to have been able to reach an even bigger audience outside of what I normally do, and the fact that it's resonated with so many people is the whole reason why this means so much to me, because again, with some of the things that I've gone through and I'm still going through to this day, I wish I had more people who were speaking on their truth and their story that I could go to, because I felt like I was alone in the things I was going through. And it's really heartwarming to see so many people open up and share their stories and be vulnerable, and it means a lot for anybody who is listening to these podcasts. I know it's unconventional and it's nothing too crazy, it's nothing edited, super professional, or like those other podcasts you see where it's switching different frames. Who knows, if I choose to continue this, it could create something new each time, and I want to keep reinventing myself. And I just taught a class and I was talking about that, how we have the power to reinvent ourselves, and nobody else can tell you to stay in your own little box, because that's all you're supposed to do. You can take control of your life and just constantly do something new without anybody's permission. But again, thank you guys for listening week after week, because it feels like I am not alone, and I hope that you guys don't feel that as well. And with that being said, this episode is about feeling alone, and I think this is a topic that a lot of people go through. And it's kind of that forbidden almost topic that people kind of shy away from and pretend like everything's fine. And it's only because we're putting up walls ourselves to block out other people, because we don't want to feel like a burden to other people. But I feel like when you put up those walls, you're not able to fully be yourself. And I don't know about any of you guys, but I feel myself when I open up to other people. I feel the most myself. And it's this undescribable feeling. When I'm around true, genuine people, I feel the happiest, I feel the most energetic, and I don't feel like my energy is getting drained, which that's something that I've had to look inward towards, because there's a lot of interactions that you have like as days go on with people, and it's more of like a passing by interaction, and then you get home and you're like, oh, thank God. And that's just like the social anxiety building up, and you get home and you're like isolating yourself because you're like, that was so much for me today. My social battery is drained. But I've had to look inward and realize the people that I surround myself with are people who don't drain my social battery, and it only amplifies it. And I love adapting my energy to different people. Sometimes I'm more calm, sometimes I'm more crazy, and sometimes I want to go to bed by 8 p.m. Sometimes I'm up until 4 a.m. But it's been a cool journey just to kind of find the group of people that make me feel the most me. Because I think for the longest time, I felt alone because of some things that I was going through, and I didn't have the courage to open up to the people who were closest to me. And I think that kind of made me push people away, whether I was realizing it at the time or not. It did more harmful things than it did good. And that's on me, and it's not on anybody else. It was on myself. But that's also okay, because I wasn't ready to tell people about the mental problems that I was going through, because I felt like I was going to burden them, and I just always wanted to be that positive light. But always being positive ended up making me feel even more drained. And so I didn't want to be around people. And so I have my phone here again just to kind of go through some topics I wanted to touch on as well. And so one of the things I wanted to talk about was the difference between feeling alone but also being independent. So if you're like me, I'm a very independent person. I get the most done when I am doing things for myself, by myself, and on my own time. And like, I'm someone who likes to plan things out. It's very rare that I will spontaneously do something. I love having those moments, which that's something I'm trying to break out into, but I think you have to kind of dip your toes into that territory if you are more of an introvert like I am. But anyway, I'm a very independent person. And so sometimes I self-sabotage myself because I want to be alone, but I know that when I'm alone, I'm not being 100% my full potential self, if that kind of makes sense. Like, I'm working on myself, but I think, again, when I'm around a group of people that I feel such genuine energy from, I don't focus on the little things. And I think when I focus on the little things, it makes me overthink everything. And then I hyper focus on one thing that I can control. But then that just turns into a spiral effect. And I get in my head a lot. And then I isolate myself in my room for hours that turn into days, that turn into weeks, that turn into months. And then time goes by and I'm like, why am I not accomplishing the things I want to accomplish? It's because although I'm taking the time for myself and I'm saying this is self-care, this is me working on me, at the same time, I'm not 100% me unless I get out of my comfort zone and I put myself in different situations and keep challenging myself so I can evolve as a person. And I think it's good to have your alone time, but sometimes being alone for long periods of time does more harm than it does good. And trust me, I'm someone who loves my alone time. I love to be alone, but I don't like feeling alone. And so when I close myself off to people or to my friends and everything, and I ask myself, why don't I have people that I can turn to? It all falls back on me, because I, or you, if you're in my shoes, have to be okay with opening up and saying yes more often. I think I say no and yes like 50-50 when I want to try to say yes more 80% of the time and no like 20% of the time. And when I say that, I mean saying yes to things that will do good for you. Like saying yes to going out one night instead of being like, oh no, I'll stay in tonight. Again, I'm not like a big going out person. I would much rather stay inside and watch a movie and be in my pajamas. But even if it's just going out to your friend's house or having your friends come over or going out with your family to dinner or going to grab coffee with friends, just saying yes to more things that make your mind constantly move. So you're not so worried about the little things being like, oh no, I'm supposed to do this later today, and then, oh no, like, what am I doing with my life? And then it just turns into this constant battle in your mind. And instead of battling within your mind, you should be using that as motivation to expand yourself outward. And so I have had my fair share of self-isolating myself. And I think a lot of people kind of went through this during COVID, because obviously we're all home, but it was the first time that we weren't able to physically connect with people that we always saw every single day. And it kind of made you realize maybe I was taking advantage of these little interactions. And then when that's kind of stripped away from you, you realize how important that is. And so getting out of that was such a weird transition for me. And I was in this really, really bad mental funk at the beginning of COVID, even months before, because I was just getting out of a really, really hard relationship with myself. And so when COVID happened, I had also broken my ankle. So I was isolated in my house, but also couldn't do the one thing that I truly love to do, which was dancing or moving or just doing something. So that really messed up my mind, because I couldn't get outside, I couldn't see my friends, I couldn't do these things. So I kept focusing on the negatives instead of seeing, okay, because these things are taken away from me, what can I do to still feel like me? So I lost myself for a while, and when we were kind of transitioning out of that, I still was trying to find who I was, and I was holding on to a past self that I couldn't regain. And it took me years to figure out who I was or who I wanted to be, or if I wanted to go back to who I was. And then also transitioning, I was turning 18 that year. So I was like, I'm gonna be an adult. So I'm not a kid anymore. So now I have to mature my image, but I don't want to lose myself. So it was always like, I could do this, but I don't want to do this. And I just kept self-sabotaging myself, and I lost who I was, and I isolated myself, and I felt completely alone because I was going through all of this in my head, and I didn't speak about it to anybody. And so falling into that rabbit hole, it was like a journey to try and climb out of. But once I saw the light at the end of the tunnel, I realized I had to open my eyes and realize it's okay to let go of the past. And there's this one quote that I really love, and it's, only look back to see how far you've come. And I'm very proud of how far I've been able to come. And I think a lot of people, if you take a second right now and you think about where you were when you were 8, and then you think about where you were when you were 10, then maybe 13, then 16, then 18, and so on, you could see how you've changed through the years. And it's okay. you still have a core part of yourself, and you'll always be yourself if you are 100% genuine in the things that you do. And you don't have to be the same person, but you could still have your core center and build around that to create who you want to be. And this year, I kind of just opened myself up to a new era, a new beginning, a fresh start, and not worrying about where I was in the past. And I'm focusing on the present and the future, and looking forward to what I could become. And I don't feel alone anymore, because I've been able to express myself through different things. I can express myself through dancing, but I could express myself through words now. I can express myself through teaching or through meeting new people. And some of my favorite moments are the little things. So going and grabbing a coffee with a friend, or making plans the day of, and just taking action. Those are the things that genuinely make me excited about life and just living. And it's not about just going day to day anymore. It's truly about living my life and having these life experiences, good and bad, little, big, whatever they are. It makes me excited, because also I turned 21 this year, and it's like, I'm not a kid anymore. I'm an adult. I could do what I want, and I don't need to ask anybody. I have a really bad habit of still like asking for permission from people, when I'm like, wait, I don't need to ask anymore. I can just do it. And it's the most fun thing when you're like, oh, it's my life. I can do what I want. Like, that's so true. And I don't feel alone, because I trust people that I'm close to enough to open up to them, and have them open up to me, and just let them know that I'm always there for them. And have an open communication. Communication is the number one thing that is most important to me. I think I said this in one of my earlier episodes, but it truly is the most important quality of a person to me. If you don't have good communication, there's always going to be this rift, and it won't open until you're able to openly communicate. And if that communication starts to get rocky, then you know, hey, maybe it's something with me, maybe it's something with the other person, but like, there's something wrong here if we can't communicate and understand each other. And I'm just very grateful to have people that I understand, and they understand me, and they've allowed me to open up to them and not feel alone. Because it's really scary when you do feel alone and you feel like no one else is going through what you're going through. So you feel like you have to just hold it down in your belly, but then a day comes and everything just wants to burst out. And that's when just everything just falls apart. And I think that's a lot where my anxiety comes from as well, is because I'll keep things in for a really long time because I'm afraid of confrontation. Confrontation scares the heck out of me. It is terrifying. I think I've only confronted a few people in my life, probably like maybe 3 times tops. It is the absolute worst thing that I hate doing, but it is so important not to keep things in, because then you'll end up resenting yourself because you're like, why didn't I just say it? Because if you just say things to people, then, and they react in a certain way, then you know the type of person that they are. And it's much better to be honest with somebody than to hold back because you are afraid of what they're going to say. Because you're never going to know what somebody else is thinking unless you have that open conversation. And yeah, that's been a very big lesson for me to learn, and it's still something that I'm trying to get used to, is being able to openly say things without being afraid of what the response may be. Because when you have everything out on the table, then you've done your part, and it feels so relieving, because then there's nothing inside here that's going to mess you up for what you want to achieve. And going into that, it's very important to keep your mind busy, but not busy with your own thoughts that are bringing you down. So when I say that, I'm someone who falls victim to having a lot of things that I want to do, but I procrastinate so much on them, so it stays in my head, and then the hours go by, and I'm like, wait, I have a million things to do now, and it's like midnight, and then I'm rushing, and then I feel bad about myself, and then I start the negative self-talk, and the bad habits start creeping in my mind again. And then I isolate myself, and it's this constant thing where I'll isolate myself because I feel like, oh, I didn't do the things that I needed to do, or I feel like crap today, so I don't want anybody to see me because I feel like I'm so bad and I could have done better, and blah, 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 blah. But that's just the start of the bad cycle, because again, when you keep your mind busy with things other than worrying about yourself, it helps. I find that when I keep my mind busy, whether I'm driving somewhere or I'm going out and just getting out of the house, it does so much good just to get out and breathe the fresh air and look at the sun. And it's very great to like take your time and like stay in bed, have your Netflix and chill days, but you feel so much more productive when you're able to get out and do little things. So I think my challenge for myself, and I'm saying this for myself as well because I want to hold myself accountable, but I think my challenge for you guys as well is every day, just take little steps. So if it's something like you want to be more active, maybe go for a little walk outside just for 10 minutes a day and start with that. Or if you want to try a new coffee shop once a week, then try that. And you'll find like when you pick up these little habits that you're doing for yourself and not punishing yourself for, you'll be able to embrace more life into your life. And I think when you find that peace within yourself, you'll want to do things with other people, and you won't want to do them alone. Because I want to do things with other people when I feel my best, and I feel my best when I am taking care of myself through and through, and not harming myself because I didn't get things done that I wanted to get done that day. So I think taking little steps and giving yourself grace is so important, so that you're able to feel your best self, and you'll want to do things that challenge you and get you outside of your comfort zone. And when you find those connections too with people, you'll want to open up to them, and you won't be so focused on the things that are getting you down. And so I think the most important thing that I wanted people to get from this is everyone has their challenges, and everyone goes through things on their own time, and that is completely okay. And it's okay to feel alone, but it's so important to, I want to find the right words. It's okay to feel alone, but it's so important just to give yourself grace. And I say that because I think when you get so hard on yourself, you feel like you aren't good enough, or you feel like you aren't good enough for yourself, so you feel like you're not good enough for other people, and that's where the isolation kicks in, and you don't want to be around other people. But when you give yourself grace and you say, hey, it's okay, one bad day won't kill a week. Just because you had a bad day doesn't mean you have to have a bad week, doesn't mean you have to have a bad month. Every day, think of it as a blank slate. It's a blank start. Wake up in the morning and just say, hey, I made a mistake yesterday, I'm going to do better today. And when you have that mindset, you'll be able to step outside and just realize we only have one life, and it's okay to be independent and go for things and do things for yourself. But life is no fun going through it alone. And the worst thing is to feel like you're the only person in the world going through something that is mentally destroying you. Because trust me, there's so many people that are probably going through the same thing, or less or more than what you're going through. But nobody's gonna know unless you feel comfortable enough to open up to people that you trust. And so find those people. And believe me, it takes a lot of courage. And to the ones who are very open and honest and vulnerable, you are so strong. And the ones that are taking their time, you're equally as strong, and your feelings are always valid. And take your time with it, but don't destroy yourself over the little things. And I think being more open is so important, and it's a quality that I am always taking into my life day by day. And it's really freeing when you don't have anything inside and you don't hold anything back. So I really hope that this episode was able to resonate with people. And I kind of rambled here and there, but there was just so many different things that I wanted to touch on. And it's so important for me, for people to realize that they aren't alone, and to realize that it's a normal trait, though, that we isolate ourselves. But it shouldn't be a recurring trait. And taking those steps, taking action, little day by day, you'll be able to grow into yourself. And by like this time next year, you'll be a completely new person. And again, that reinventing yourself comes in. And you'll be able to look back at that to see how far you've come. And with that being said, this is the end of episode 7 of Just Being We. I don't even know what to say. Next week is going to be a very challenging week for me, but thank you guys for giving me this platform to speak upon these topics. They're so incredibly important to me. And everybody that I've had on here and talk about things with, it really means a lot that they opened up and were able to share their stories, and for anybody listening out there to hear it as well, because it's one thing to hear it from one person, but when you hear it from multiple people, it's reassuring in the fact that everyone is human in their own way, and we're opening up beyond the screen, beyond what we see on social media. And I'm just very grateful that I've become more comfortable. Like, I even feel more comfortable just talking. I think in the beginning I was a little scared and a little tense and timid because I didn't know where to begin, or I didn't know if I was going to be able to hold a conversation, and that self-doubt kicked in. But each episode, it allowed me to open up, and everybody who came on also had a different type of connection when we were talking, and it just felt easy and comfortable and safe. And I really, really love that. And thank you guys for listening to my story. And I hope that all of the episodes so far and the next episode will impact in a bigger way, and this can be something bigger than what I could have ever hoped for. And already it is that for me, because like I said in the beginning of this thing, if even one person out there is listening, that's all I need. That's all the reassurance I need, and it means a lot. So thank you guys for listening, and I cannot wait for next week's episode. So I'll see you next week.